Go ahead and get um first of all, I just want to thank all of you for being here today. If you don't already know who I am Alexa Tinsley, and I am the Director of Programs for Jett Foundation. Thank you all for joining us today for one of our 11th annual World Duchenne Awareness Day events. So all of us here at Jett Foundation are so happy to have all of you here with us as we raise awareness for Duchenne, and also this year's theme, Raise Our Voices. Before we get started, I do just want to mention a few things. This event is being recorded, so we will have it in our library of resources, both on our website and on our YouTube later for you to be able to watch. Or if you know anybody at all that wasn't able to make it but wanted to attend today, please feel free to share them. We will make sure to share the recording with all of those that have participated in the event later so that you can share that at your leisure. There will also be time at the end to ask our panelists some questions. There is a question box in your panel. It has literally a chat box with a question mark in it. So we do primarily look at that when trying to answer questions. We do try to monitor the chat to find questions that come in on there as well. It is streaming to Facebook Live, so we try to monitor that and bring the questions in. So like I said, we will try to get to all of the questions. If for some reason we are not able to get to them, we will keep track of them and give them to our panelists to see if they may be able to answer them after the event. But I do also want to mention that there is closed captioning and language translation if there's something that you need. So at the bottom, it has the little box with the CC in it. That should be able to show captions and provide your speaking language. There's a full transcript, and you can change the caption settings that way as well. I do also want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. We had over 33 sponsors this year that that sponsored this day's events as a whole, representing both industry partners and fellow advocacy organizations, and that is absolutely instrumental in making our WD events today possible. WDAD events possible. It's been a long day, so bear with me. But just wanted to have a huge thank you to them. And a huge thank you to our panelists who, without them today and this panel, would absolutely not be possible. Sharing their experiences, sharing their views, their ideas for solutions. I just, it's a really, really important piece. And I really thank them for being here to share that. So to kick off our virtual event, I do want to bring attention to the quote that is on my shirt and many of your shirts today. It reads, disability only becomes a tragedy when society fails to provide the things we need to lead our lives. So this quote embodies the discussion that we're going to have for you today in our virtual panel as we discuss accessibility in a world that isn't always accessible. So I am so grateful to our moderator, Jill Castle, and our panelists for taking the time to share their experiences, like I said, and help find solutions that can help make our community better and stronger. So with that, I will hand it off to Jill to introduce herself and introduce the panel.
Great. Hi, thank you so much for having me. For those of you who don't know me, I've been in the field of education and patient advocacy for over 20 years. As both a professional and a parent, I have been a teacher, a special ed director. I've worked for the State Department of Education. I'm also a certified behavior coach for both parents and professionals. I teach at ASU currently in educational psychology, classroom management, leadership, and behavior intervention. And I work with all of the Duchenne organizations. I love volunteering for Jett Foundation. I also consult for Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy, and I work for Little Hercules Foundation. Lastly, and most importantly, I'm a parent of Anthony Castle, who is a young man with Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and he is getting ready to turn 25. So I'm going to go around and let everybody introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Ravi.
Hi, for those who don't know me, I'm Ravi Lippman. I am 25 years old. I have Duchenne muscular dystrophy. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. In terms of advocacy, I am part of the PPMD Adult Advisory Committee, and I just recently graduated from law school.
That's great. Okay, Deb, you're next.
Okay, hello, good afternoon. My name is Deb Jensen. I live in Madison, Alabama. And I am the mother of triplet daughters that are 15 years old. One of them has Duchenne in the same way that a boy does. And then one of them has sort of milder symptoms of Duchenne. And then my third daughter is unaffected. So we're kind of just trying to navigate this from a female perspective.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Alan?
Yes, of course. Sorry, my dogs will be barking just for a little bit, but so my name's Alan Soleil. I'm 34 years old with GMD, and I'm the vice president of All Wheels Up, which is a research and advocacy organization working to make airplanes wheelchair accessible. And I've been part of the PPMD Adults Advisory Committee since it started a decade ago. And I'm also a Jett Foundation community ambassador.
That's great. Thank you. Kimberly?
My name is Kimberly, and I live in Oregon with my family. I have a 9-year-old daughter who has Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, which is obviously not the norm. She's not a manifesting carrier, but has Duchenne's. And I'm also a Jett Foundation ambassador as well.
Okay, great. So as everybody can see, we have an amazing panel full of all kinds of experience and wisdom for us today. So we're going to start off by going around, and we want to talk about what is going well. So let's go around and just spend a moment talking about what does work well in regards to accessibility and how the community works for you and shows up for you. Robbie.
So I think like the biggest thing to celebrate is the fact that people with Duchenne are living longer and they're living more productive and healthy lives. And I feel like the community does a good job connecting people who have Duchenne with each other and to help form friendships and bonds and I guess networking opportunities.
Yeah, it's come a long way, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, Deb, what are your thoughts on that? You're coming from a totally different perspective. What do you think is working well?
Yeah, I think so. I've kind of been in this space, kind of the Duchenne world, for about the last 10 years now. And I've seen this community just kind of from the perspective of having a girl with Duchenne. The community has just become so much more aware over the last 10 years that this is something that happens. So there's just so much more acceptance today. People are very careful now to not, when they talk about Duchenne, not to only exclusively, use the word boys or the word men. So we've just it just feels so much more welcoming. It's just, I love that the awareness is growing, and not just among the community, but, among the medical professionals, which is really important. And, I think another thing that's working well is that there are just a tremendous number of really, really smart people that are working on treatments and, just trying to target Duchenne and, like Ravi said, help everybody live longer. So that's a really positive thing.
For sure, for sure. Thank you so much. Alan, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, so right now I'm one of the oldest people with GMD, so my perspective, it's quite different than everyone else. Like I remember when there was close to no research done at all, and it's just incredible how now we have 6 different like approved treatments, and it's growing like every year. There's like 1 or 2 more new ones, and I think that's working great. I think our advocacy is really strong. I think we're one of the strongest rare disease communities there is, and yeah, I think things are good. Like now, like we're pretty much like expected to be able to go to college, graduate at like like start a career or like start a family. And yeah, it's just a completely different landscape from when there's close to nothing. And I think like if you're younger with, you know, in the Duchenne community, like you weren't around for lots of that.
For sure. It's changed a lot in the 20 years I've been around. And I think it's so important for you to share your more global perspective, because you've got the longevity to show all the progress that we've made. That the new families that are joining us don't have that perspective. So it's very, very good to hear that. Kimberly, what do you think is working well?
Well, as a new family that has just recently joined, because it took a while for her to get her actual Duchenne diagnosis. One of the things that, you know, when you get that diagnosis, your world just kind of falls out from under you. And I was just very overwhelmed by the sense of community with everybody, you know, reaching out on Facebook and asking, you know, who can tell me more about this? And everybody, I just felt like immediately I was accepted into a family of people that were saying, we've got you. Like, we got your back on this. And it doesn't matter if you have a daughter or a son, we're all in this together. And that was just very instrumental in keeping me going during that time.
Yeah, thank you. It was for me as well, even back in the day. It still is today. It's kind of the family you never necessarily wanted to join, but
Right.
you're in, you're just like loved by everybody. We do a really good job at that. Thank you for pointing that out. So why don't you continue, and we'll go backwards and tell me, you know, on that note, maybe what's maybe not working as well. You know, maybe we know we need to look at the other side for a few moments.
Well, I would say specifically for our family, one thing that is and is not working well is we've gotten a lot of support on, you know, playground equipment adaptations and school adaptations and stuff. But the reason that we've been getting support in that is because we hired a legal advocate that could be by our side through every step of the way. And I have another special needs daughter that has different needs, and they're not as intensive, and she doesn't have a legal aid. And I definitely see that the speed in which things get done with the school is different when you pay for legal backing in that. So we've been very blessed to have gotten what we need out of it, but it would be nice if it was, you know, you're not having to pay a legal person to stand behind you to get what your child needs. I would also say that for our family, we live on the West Coast, and vehicle accessibility has been different. It's easy enough for us to buy a van, but to have something that's 4-wheel drive that we can drive in the weather when school is still on and we're up in the ice and the snow, it's been really difficult because all of the places that make 4-wheel drive vehicles are on the East Coast, and nobody over on this side of the coast really works on them or knows too much about them. So that has been a little bit of a struggle. It's nice to be able to get into a van easily, but it would be nice to have something that would be easier to find accessibility for, you know, her living a full life and not having to skip school because the weather keeps us home.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, that's a great point. And the advocacy for education, you know, I think the more that we learn and the more the support we get through the community too, the less, I mean, I'm all about getting an advocate if you really need one and you're really in trouble, but there are so many free supports out there too. So I do want people to know, I mean, you definitely need support and need to understand how the system works. It's not easy. That's for sure. So
Can I
go
add
ahead.
one thing?
Yeah.
I would say one of the things that has been instrumental for her schooling and her teachers is I went through and I printed out everything for schooling and age groups off of the PPMD site, which is an invaluable resource because nobody knows what to expect when they haven't been in this world. You know, I didn't know what to expect before I started researching stuff either. And so it was really invaluable for me to print off all of those pages and distribute them to the teachers and say, you know, if you have more questions, you can ask me, but this is something that gives you some really good, valuable information to know what to expect.
Okay, good. I'm so glad you found that valuable. That makes me really happy. And I think the key is to be collaborative, right? And build a team so that they understand and learn and want to learn.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So glad to hear. So, Alan, do you want to talk about maybe, what could be working better? What
Yeah.
needs improvement, maybe?
Yeah, of course. So I hope to talk about later on, like some of the policy that we're able to rule all wheels up. But I think some of the policies, like there could be huge improvements there. Like speaking in terms of the cars, like there could be more support. Like it's great that there's things like the Jett Giving Fund, but yeah, like there's also a tax credit for getting an accessible van, but there could be more support with that. And me and Ravi, and pretty much like every adult with DMD, some of the issues with like SSI are insane. Like it should be much easier to be able to work on SSI and Medicaid as well. Like so much of stuff with insurance, like there could be huge like improvements, and things are slowly getting made, like with PPMD and Jett Foundation, where the advocacy, like we are starting work on many of these things, and changes are happening, but there could be a lot more, like with ABLE accounts. Those, like the law to make that was 11 years ago now, and yeah, there could be a lot more that could be done.
Yeah, I know at Little Hercules, everybody's very busy working on navigating insurance issues. So yeah, it's a big big thing in our community. So Deb, tell us what your challenges are. You'd
Okay,
like to see focused on,
yeah. So I'm kind of all over the map. So there's a few things, but just kind of from the perspective of having daughters, first of all, even though awareness has increased throughout the community, I'm not aware of any drug trials to date that will include a female. And generally the reason they give is that females are outliers. It could mess up their data. It could be hard to get FDA approval. But I think if a female falls within the same parameters, just like, boys with Duchenne, there's some variability, where they're at based on their age or whatever. If a female falls within that, to me, there's really absolutely no reason that she should be excluded. So, I think we have a long way to go there. And then just kind of from the perspective of my daughter that has sort of milder symptoms, she's one of many, many women throughout the world that have symptoms of Duchenne. I myself have heart, related issues. And, I think that there's at least 2 carrier clinics I know of now in the US, which is great. But just again, from the perspective of drug trials, there are some drugs out there that potentially could do a trial with women, just kind of see how it is and see if it's something that women can be treated with. So I think that's something that needs to happen. And then in the gene therapy world, my daughter with Duchenne qualifies for gene therapy. My milder daughter, we don't really know if it would help her or hurt her. And I think there's a lot of females in that sort of situation. So it would be really nice if somebody would study that and take a look at that, so that we know. And then kind of to jump on what Alan was saying with insurance. So, speaking of gene therapy, my daughter qualifies, but we just found out this week that insurance denied gene therapy for her. And, it's just, we're kind of in this land of haves and have-nots. Like some kids can get it and some can't, and it just all depends on what insurance you have. And I think that's kind of ridiculous. Something needs to be done there. As approval by the FDA, that should be enough. It just doesn't make sense. And then finally, this is kind of random, but I know there's been a lot of work that, Alan mentioned that he affiliated with All Wheels Up, and you know, them, and I don't know who else was involved, but there's been just tremendous progress as far as airline travel for people with disabilities. And I know they're looking at a way to possibly bring wheelchairs onto aircraft, which would be great. It doesn't make sense to me that everybody seems to be ignoring the lavatory on airplanes. You know, they get smaller and smaller, and it's at the point now where one full-sized adult could barely fit in one by themselves, let alone go in there with a helper. So, you know, I think that's something that really needs to be worked on. And that seems kind of random, but those are really my big issues right now, I guess.
No, that's really important. Yeah, we'll have to talk on the side, but you got to take your denial to Little Hercules Foundation for your insurance. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to navigate out there for sure. Definitely not easy. And Kimberly, did we talk about, let's talk to you about some of the challenges that you're facing.
Yeah, so we went over the challenges with the
Oh, we started talking to you about challenges.
we went backwards.
We did. I worked backwards. I forgot about that. Then I must have missed Ravi on challenges.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
my challenges are very like similar to Alan, is that there's so many barriers to like education and employment for people with Duchenne, in terms of like schools are very uneducated about what Duchenne is and what we're capable of. Like for example, they wanted to put me like in special ed classes, like, but the thing is I don't have a mental disability. I just have a physical disability. I was one of the top students in my class, but still they didn't really understand what Duchenne really meant. And also another barrier to working, like Alan mentioned, is uh when you work you might lose your SSI benefits, and that's how like you can pay for I I pay for my personal care assistant through, or I guess the state pays through SSI. So I guess that's another barrier to working, is that you don't really want to. If you go over the limit, the asset limit, then like, or the income limit, you might lose your personal care assistant, and like then I'd have a problem even getting to work or even at work. And then finally, I think it's kind of hard challenge to address, but I feel like there's a lot of bias in hiring, and employers don't really, they seem very hesitant to hire somebody with a disability because they don't really know what all that entails. And so I guess advocating for yourself is a big thing that you need to do. But it's just like, for example, I just finished law school, and all my, like a lot of my friends, like a lot of the firms have been recruiting them to like come work for them. But it's just like I found kind of a barrier to me. Like even though like I had really good grades and was like in law review, I had a hard time finding a job because a lot of employers, they just, I don't know what the reason was, but they just didn't take a chance to hire me. So those are my biggest issues. But
Yeah.
luckily I got a job with the employer who didn't care. So like
Oh,
they
good.
they did everything that they in their power to make it accessible for me and make sure that I can work at their firm, you know. So
Well, good. It sounds like you've got the right place, because if you're welcomed and people want you there, then you can be assured that you're going to be treated well. But yeah, getting people to have more awareness. I think advocating for yourself is so important. And then I think it's really important too that not only do we advocate, all of us, for all these variety of things that are so challenging in our community, but then also, offering to partner and to help bring solutions, because unfortunately, we have enough on our plate. We shouldn't need to do that. But as we all know, that's kind of what we need to do. We need to educate people and educate schools that every person with Duchenne looks different, right? And has different capabilities and different strengths and challenges. And to educate people and medical communities about what we need, and insurance companies, and the list goes on, right? Clinicians. So let's talk a little bit about that. We're hoping that for today's panel, y'all did a little bit of thinking and came up with maybe some solutions to some of these challenges that we talked about. I know I've mentioned some resources throughout the conversation, but I'd like to hear from you guys. You guys are the experts and know what solutions you might have or what ideas you might want to share with the community since you've got the floor. Let's start back with you, Kimberly. So you've been quiet for a few.
So, I mean, I think that education is hugely important, and Duchenne can look so different in everybody, which also makes the education difficult. But I think that, like, especially in the school system, to be able to educate on the specific child that is in the classroom system, in my case, Mesa's Duchenne does cause a significant cognitive impairment. And so they know that she is on her own trajectory and we go at her pace. That significant cognitive impairment has also allowed her to be able to be qualified for disability as a child, which has made huge strides in being able to help us cover medical expenses for her. And I think one of the things that would be amazing, I was very surprised when I talked to disability and muscular dystrophy is not on the qualification list. She would not have qualified if she did not have her cognitive impairment, and just the amount of medical bills that she incurs on a yearly basis, not even discussing gene therapy or anything like that. I think that if things could be adjusted so that muscular dystrophy was a qualifier at a younger age, then that would allow families to be able to access things like gene therapy that maybe their regular insurance wasn't going to cover. I also think maybe looking at trying to figure out some granting foundations to be able to allow families access, if needed, to have a medical advocate in their corner, and not have to have the expense of it would be, really wonderful, so that they could get some of those expenses covered. Because I think that there's a very strong likelihood. I mean, if we didn't have the financial backing that we have, Mesa would easily be slipping through the cracks because the school system is just over their head. They don't know what to expect besides us giving them the resources that I printed out from Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy. And so I think really just, education and figuring out a way to get everybody on Medicaid, and then figuring out some grantings to help families.
Yeah, those are great suggestions. Yeah, it's tricky because the Medicaid stuff is different in every state, right? And so some of our people qualify under the cognitive impairment. And then when they don't, some states have elderly and physically disabled, categories. But every state is different, and it's really complicated. And you have to actually take state by state to figure out what the rules are in each place. So it is quite a maze to try to get through. Again, there's organizations that can help you do that, but yeah, it does get really challenging. So I hear what you're saying. Did you have any other ideas or solutions for some of these issues?
The other idea that I don't even know how would be put into place, but for the vehicular accessibility, it would be nice to see some networking between the East Coast dealerships and some of the West Coast dealerships that don't necessarily carry the brand, to get some education going so that they could have some vehicles over here that we could test drive and that we would know mechanics would be able to work on. And I think that that's more of a networking thing to make everybody feel comfortable with it. But I think that there's definitely a need for that as well.
Yeah, some of them are national, but some of them really don't communicate very well, do they?
Right.
Yeah, I can understand. I hear you. I hear you. So did you have anything else? Or I was going to kind of move on to Alan, but if you have anything else to add, I want to make sure I don't cut anybody short because I'm so excited to be on the panel.
No, I think you're good to move on to Alan.
Okay, good. So Alan, you're next. So what are your great ideas? Have you been spinning on this and thinking? You've got so much history and wisdom to share.
Yeah, so one thing that Kimberly was talking about is like that we can't get on disability in many situations, like, because people that are on disability, they get Medicare and Medicaid, and right now, Medicaid's like, good and stuff, it covers things, but it's not many places like accept it at all, and a lot more to take Medicare. And yeah, I think the thing that I want to talk about is just advocacy. Like, advocacy works. Like some of the advocacy, like for me, the advocacy I've seen at Parent Project, like all the results it's gotten, like it's helped me in my career tremendously, like helping build all this up and getting some of the things done there. And just like in the last year alone, like we got a bunch of new like accessible air travel things. Like now, like everyone who assists wheelchair users is going to be mandated training standards, and like airlines are like going to be required to report the cargo hold dimensions of every plane. And like another big thing that happened this year was there was a new wheelchair rule that allows us to choose like our wheelchair like company, like to repair or replace our wheelchair, like if it's mishandled during like air travel. And I think like us, along with like many other great advocacy organizations like Paralyzed Veterans of America and MDA, among like others, like, yeah, we're getting big things. And yeah, some of them are leading on many big things like PPMD with the advocacy conference. Like, that's amazing. Like, I wish everyone in the DMD community could be able to attend. And like the policy asks and things we ask for, like we pretty much get every single thing we ask for from Congress, which is like, yeah, like it's kind of like, it's crazy. And so many other rare disease communities are, jealous of that. And yeah, and just some of the others is like the MDA, like we're also doing more with Parent Project to get airplanes wheelchair accessible, but they have a huge campaign for many other things. Like they're one of the lead organizations in like the SSI Savings Penalty Elimination Act, and that's the one that would raise the asset limits from $2,000 to $10,000, and that one's close. If we work, hard enough, I think it could definitely pass in the next year.
Oh, that's such great news. Yeah, as far as some of the other organizations, like two things I wanted to add. One is that, yeah, Duchenne, we're pretty assertive and we're pretty effective as far as the community goes. I have been around long enough to see that we do make quite an impact compared to a lot of other rare diseases that really struggle with that. So we've got that going for us. And you mentioned paralyzed veterans, which I thought was really great, because one of the things I was wondering is, solution-wise, how many solutions lie in maybe teaming up with other disabilities that have the same focus we do in something such as Wheels Up, All Wheels Up. That's something really important, that we could possibly look for synergy with other organizations or other disabilities. So that was good.
Yeah, they're great. They've supported us from the very beginning, and we would not be where we are today without them. And yeah, they're great. And there's so many really good disability like advocacy organizations for like every like disease or condition there is.
Yeah, and I think focusing on our commonalities rather than our differences, because I know when I got in this, I hear a lot of parents say, and I used to feel the same way, like nobody really understands, Duchenne is so different. But then when you start partnering with other disabilities that have commonalities, you start to realize that we do share things with other communities and other people. We're not necessarily alone in all of it, which is really nice. I wanted to ask one more question. I just wanted to go back. You mentioned nobody really accepts Medicaid. They accept Medicare, but not Medicaid. I just want to hear more about that. Who were you referring to? And are you talking about the Medicaid waiver, right? That a lot of our community is on. Who doesn't accept it that you would like to see more emphasis on?
Well, so the big thing is like the reimbursement rate. Like doctors are paid a lot less from Medicaid than
Mhm.
Medicare and private insurance. So, but it really depends on which state. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I was just curious. I just wanted to make sure I understood. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, I wanted to go on to Deb and hear what Deb has to say. What ideas Deb's got working over there.
Okay, I mean, so, Alan is saying a lot of very wise things, and I feel like I'm copying off of Alan today. But, just a disease like Duchenne, it can hit anybody, right? And so because of that, we have this community with people with all these different talents. I mean, Ravi's a lawyer, so Ravi's going to fix all our problems. Um, but all these different talents, and so it's just amazing when we work together. It's just amazing what we can achieve. And I mean, nobody's gonna kind of ignore somebody with it's not your fault you have a disability, right? So I think just kind of being loud and raising our voices and talking to our representation, not just federal but state representation as well, and just kind of make it known that, hey, we're out here, we have these needs that aren't being met. Any reasonable person is going to listen, I think. And even just on a smaller scale, I mean, just day to day, you know I think it's important just to sort of on a day-to-day basis make people aware of things. Like, for example, you go into a restaurant and they have to follow ADA, so they have their ramp and they have all these things, but say that the tables are too close together and a wheelchair can't get past them. Just say something. Like, wherever you go, whenever you see something, just say something, and you don't have to be mean about it. Just say, hey, by the way, you need more space between tables. This isn't really good for wheelchair users, or, whatever it is. Anything that happens, I feel like every day I'm advocating for my daughters, to somebody, and just getting people to understand, because I think people aren't intentionally making life harder. They just don't know. Like, they just don't think about it. They don't realize it. So I think if all of us are out there just kind of in a very nice way, kind of nudging people along and saying, hey, this is something that's important to a wheelchair user, that's something that anybody can do. So to me, and then, in addition, just in this discussion, so many different organizations have come up that are all working together. And I think we just keep doing that. We just all keep working together. And, we've made so much happen, at least in the last 10 years that I've been involved in this community. And, let's just keep going. Just be loud, advocate for ourselves, for our children, whatever it is.
That's great. Yeah, I do. I mean, I think like being here today for Jett Foundation, they've done so many incredible things, and they've got their hands in different areas, and each organization seems to kind of focus on different things, which is really important because we don't want to all recreate the wheel or waste time that none of us have, right? And then we all go out, and I don't know, I just felt it as a parent, I kind of felt responsible from all the things that I learned. I want to make sure that I'm sharing what it was so painful for me to figure out, so that was the reason I got into the education and all that I did. I took so much time learning how to navigate it all that I just decided to help parents. So I think there's a lot of us in our community that do that. It's very, very exciting. That's very great. So Ravi, what's your input? I'd like to hear your input.
Well, I mean, just based on our conversation, a lot of the things I've been hearing are just that like each state is different. Like in terms of like Medicaid and other rules and navigating basically everyday living is different at each state. So I think that we need more of a focus on advocacy at the state level, as well as like in addition to advocacy at the federal level, because a lot of the legislation that would impact our lives and would make it easier would have to come from the state level. So I think reaching out to your representatives, like the good thing about the country in which we live is you can pick up a phone and call your representative. You can email them, you can show up at their office. The thing is they're very accessible to us, and we have to use that to our advantage. And I feel like that the way you go about changing things is you have to make relationship with people. You have to show them who you are. You have to like show why it's important for them to care about your issue. Not necessarily like you can't expect everybody to know about your issues or care about them if they don't even know that you exist or that it's even an issue. And also like what you mentioned, teaming up with other disability communities. I feel like the disabled community is like one of the largest communities in the country. If we just would stick together, we can make a lot happen. Because the truth of the state of the matter is that anybody can become disabled.
Mhm.
Like it's not just a uniquely Duchenne thing or even a rare disease thing. Anybody can become disabled at any moment. And so I feel like as a disability community, we have a very large voice, and we could make a lot of change if we work together with other organizations.
Yeah, I love that. It's so true. I just came from the Abilities Expo this morning here in Phoenix. And I mean, just all the variety of disabilities, but we're all looking at the same vendors. We're all having the same conversations. We're all looking for the same solutions. So that's a really good point. And I really also loved your point on state advocacy because, it's really fun to do the federal stuff and everybody kind of understands that, but really the nitty gritties in the state and your state policies, because that is what's going to impact your Medicaid waivers and your clinics and the educational system and all of that. So yeah, it's really important to get involved. It's kind of hard. How do you recommend, as parents, it's difficult sometimes. Like there's a lot of parents out there that struggle to get involved because they're overwhelmed. There's so many things that they have to do to take care of their family and just get by day to day. Taking on advocacy is really hard. So I like that,
Can I speak to like
I would love
success
that.
stories
Yes, I would
of
love
like
that.
of
Thank you.
people in our community actually working with in the state level? Is that
Mhm.
they've become, I don't know which states exactly, but there are some states that have started like for like newborn screening. They've
Mhm.
put Duchenne on the thing, and that did come through efforts from people in our community actually going to the state legislature and doing the hard work, I guess, that it takes to do that. And I mean, I guess it's not possible for every single family because every single family has a different situation, and not everybody like can do that. But if you can't really do that, I mean, you can still call your representatives when you got time. You can still advocate in whatever minimal way that you can. Like it's just whatever time you can do it, you can do it. I feel like that our life is really busy, but this is a very important thing as well. This is something that really impacts our life.
Yeah, it really does. And I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks for the newborn screening plug. We are working really hard on that. A lot of people are excited to be involved in that. And Deb, I heard you mention, in the beginning along those lines, you said something about you know, everybody's strengths, right? So like if you're an expert in this field or you're an expert in this or that, you could add your little piece to that part of the problem rather than taking on the whole thing. Did you have anything more to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of thinking about myself, like when my daughters were first diagnosed, it was like, well, I'm not going to cure this thing. So what can I do? Like, what are my strengths and how can I contribute? And I mean, there's people that do a tremendous job fundraising, people that do a tremendous job advocating, good communicators, good speakers, educators. There's just so many, even people that have kind of creative talents that can build documentaries. And I mean, there's just so many different talents people have that can be useful to the community, either to raising awareness or to making change or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
I think, like I said, when we work together, it can be really powerful.
Awesome. So that brings me back. That's perfect. It's a perfect segue to bring me back to, our theme today is raise your voice, right? And so I would like everybody to go around and just talk about your specific thing that you're going to commit to on this webinar that you're going to do to raise your voice, to help provide solutions for all of the challenges that we looked at today. Let's start with Kimberly. What's your pledge that you think you can do to raise your voice and help?
Well, mine would definitely be advocacy and educating people that are just completely unaware that this disease even exists. I mean, I'm a veterinarian and I didn't even know what muscular dystrophy was until my child was diagnosed, let alone Duchenne. So just getting the word out there so that people know that this exists and that, we can not only help, but we can make these lives longer. Longer and more productive.
That's great. Well, good. Thank you. So, Alan, what do you think you can do that's going to help raise your voice?
Yeah, I think just more with advocacy, like I'm really focusing on doing more and more like with policy. And I think just getting people to believe in advocacy, like it's very hard to like believe that it can make a difference, like at the state and the federal level. Like, yeah, like politics is so divisive and angry and stuff, but like we have great like advocates on both sides and like on both political parties fighting for us. And I think just like know who your representatives are. Like it's very tough to follow like in the news like laws and stuff that are passed, but I think like joining the email newsletters for Jett Foundation, PPMD, Cure Duchenne, and every other one, I think that's huge for seeing what gets changed and stuff. I think like, yeah, just sending like an email or doing a call with your representatives, like that works. Like they're there for a reason. Like they work for you. Like we're their bosses. Like we could easily fire them if we wanted to. And yeah, I think there's some of the stuff at the state level which has happened recently. Like it's huge. Like with their newborn screening, like Ohio this year, it was the first one to start doing it. Like many others have passed laws. Like I'm in Massachusetts and we just passed a law doing that, but I know also New York and Minnesota as well have done so. And I saw today that like the Illinois legislator like recognized World Duchenne Awareness Day as an official thing, and like we were able to this year to get the UN to recognize it. Like they posted earlier today, like the UN like Secretary General like posted about it. And yeah, I think there's so many great things like that. And yeah, like even if you think you can't make a difference, like you can.
Yeah, no kidding. And I'm really glad that you brought up the politics season right now, because we all need, I almost put a post up the other day about that. Like we're the Duchenne party, right? We need to work with people from all over and all sides, and we need to stay focused on politics and not all the crazy drama that's out there. I mean, not politics. We got to stay focused on policy. I'm sorry, like you were saying, right? And stay focused on the policies that are going to move our community forward, right? And work on a state and federal level that way. I think that's so important. I'm so grateful that you highlighted that, Ellen. So Deb, how are you raising your voice?
Oh gosh, you're going to make me commit to something, Jill. So, I mean, honestly, every opportunity I have to talk about girls with Duchenne, I'm going to take it. And I have done that. And I want to continue to do that. And, really, I want to be somebody also that can help other families with girls and just kind of, telling them what I've learned and kind of sharing information and stuff like that. But, I do think one place where I really need to get more involved is in state advocacy. I think, my state especially has a long way to go. So that's something that I need to commit to doing and just start going. So
Well, reach out to me after the webinar.
okay, deal.
And I'll help you with that. That's
All
awesome.
right,
I
sounds good.
love it. I love it. That's so great. You've been wonderful. And then Ravi, what are your final thoughts on how you're going to raise your voice?
Well, similar to what Deb said, then I need to get more involved at my state level to raise awareness for Duchenne and talk with my representatives. Like, I really need to do that because I feel like Deb said, my state also has a long way to go in terms of making things easier for us and better. Um, and I don't know if I can necessarily commit to it, but I mean, part of the reason why I became a lawyer is to help advocate and to see policy changes. I mean, I don't know if one person isn't really able to do it all by themselves, but as a community, we can fight and we can make it change.
Yeah, and don't underestimate your impact. That's for sure. I think it could be larger than we all suspect, right? When we all started out in this. And, then there's organizations. I just want to say, there's so many organizations we've mentioned today. And, Jett Foundation, I mean, I think a lot of it, you guys, is awareness, because we do have a lot of things in this community that can we look at. I don't know if people understand that Jett does emergency fund and equipment assistance fund. They help with vans. They help with, they do Camp Promise, and they have camps all across the country, sorry. And now they're doing, they do educational seminars about awareness and things like that. And the other organizations that we mentioned, some work on Medicare and some work on getting your, therapies approved. And there's other organizations that also help with some of this equipment and some of these medical things. And then, of course, we've got organizations that help with education and advocacy, support you to advocate. So I think sometimes we just need to remember there might be support out there. We're just really overwhelmed, and we've got to stop and ask and think about where to look for some of these solutions. So with that great discussion, I want to make sure did everybody feel heard before I take questions? Was there any other burning desire from anybody to say anything before I move on to questions from the community? You
Yeah,
guys
I'd like to
good?
say something like that you just mentioned about like that there are organizations that are willing to help. I guess the biggest thing is you gotta be willing to ask for help. That's the biggest thing about our community is that there are a lot of organizations, there are a lot of people that can help. You just gotta be able to ask for that help.
Oh, that's so good. I'm so glad you said that, because we do sometimes in our community, we tend to isolate a little bit, right? Think that nobody really understands. But like we talked about, we can even go outside of our community to get people to understand some of our challenges. So there is definitely a lot of support. Nobody should feel alone in this. And if there isn't a solution, that we need to reach out anyway, because we're going to have to all work together to make one, right? So with that, I guess I'm passing it back for questions, I believe.
Yes, ma'am. And I just I want to, say that this conversation and we did have an in-person event today, and something that's been said a lot, and Ravi, what you just said is the impact that we can make together. And our theme is stronger than Duchenne, and we are absolutely stronger together, but Ravi, one person can start so many things. It doesn't just have to be the community. So, I think that, you know, one of the things that I'm really proud of working for Jett Foundation is the direct services programs that we provide, and that we are able to fill some of those gaps and truly help with, the quote that we're talking about, providing services here and now for the community. Because, that's super important. And, Jill, like you said, we as a community and as organizations need to work together because we all do different things and we all do different things very well. And to be able to provide all of those things for our community is super important. So, I appreciate you guys again being here today. If there are any questions, please feel free to put them in. One of our someone had said, I want to pass on a statement that their son, who has passed, in his address to his graduating class, said that doubt is the only disability. And I absolutely love that because, Sam Safford was our keynote speaker today. And, that was one of the things that he talked about is how the community needs to change as a whole in terms of seeing people with disabilities, because everybody has so much worth regardless of if you have a physical disability, a cognitive disability, and our community is so strong. So, but if there are any other questions, please feel free there. Like I said, there's a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. It's at the bottom right of my screen. Let me see if there are any questions on Facebook. But if you guys want to add anything, please feel free. Or if anybody just has anything that, they want to say, please feel free to put that too. And then there is a comment on Facebook that I really love. I want to support the girls too. So yay to that one. Let's see. We did have a question come in. Question for you, Robbie. What type of law are you practicing?
Well, I'm actually gonna be a prosecutor in the Shelby County District Attorney's Office. So it's not really has anything to do with disability, but I mean, I'm not stuck with that forever,
Okay,
I'm gonna
also,
see where it takes me,
it doesn't have to be disability related. That's incredible. That's
Thank you.
super exciting. Congrats.
Yeah, and you might need a little bit of a break from the disability topic. Sometimes it's nice to have projects that are outside our everyday living challenges just to put things in perspective,
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And I think, being out there and kind of, the rest of society, Robbie's kind of making kind of showing, hey, you can have a disability and still be a prosecutor. And, these people that don't normally see somebody in a wheelchair, they're going to be like, wow, okay, that might spread and make other people kind of more, more welcoming, I guess, to this community. So it's.
What a good point. For
Yeah,
sure.
like there is lots of ableism in society, and yeah, it needs to change. People need to see that if someone's disabled, like they can still do great things and contribute. And there's just so much like I don't know, just lots of people just don't understand. And like there's some stuff like every disabled person experiences that is gotten ridiculous. Like there's some disability influencers, like their comments are all hate and just like crazy trolling and stuff. That's just one area of society that, we need to fix, because like anyone can become disabled like at any time. And yeah, we are the biggest minority group, and we're the only one people can, suddenly like, fall into. And I think yeah, I think there's lots of work needed to improve that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. For sure. I think that that's all of the questions that I see, but if there are any others, please feel free to shoot them our way. I want to take a minute just to thank all of you for what you do. Jill, you're an incredible force in this space, and I appreciate you being here to moderate because, couldn't do it without you, and you are so instrumental in helping so many families in this community with, you know, IEPs and other things, and now with access to care, you know, because that is one of, you know, we talked about, right? Access to clinical trials and access to care is one of those ways that we, you know, can find those solutions and truly help families. So thank you for all that you do, not just in those things, but in everything, and for your support of Jett Foundation always. And, you know, being the person to provide those resources. You know, Deb, sharing your journey on, you know, Facebook and social media about your daughters, you know, people don't always understand it, like you said. Sorry. So I really think that that is a critical piece, because the more that people understand what that looks like, the better the care and the better the access is. And I think we're learning more, Kim and Deb, that females, while maybe seen as, and we were talking about this earlier today, in rare cases, females manifest in similar ways that males do in this space. That just, I think we're finding that is not necessarily the case. So the more that you share your story, I think the more people feel comfortable in sharing theirs, and the more that they are able to access the care that they need. And Kimberly, your daughter being diagnosed with Duchenne, that's an even more rare situation. So being able to advocate for those people, and being able to advocate for those that are maybe being told that they're a girl so they can't have Duchenne is huge. And then Alan, being in so many pieces in this space, All Wheels Up, PPMD, Jett Foundation, you know, doing all of those things is so critical, you know, to raising our voices and helping raise a voice for the community. So we appreciate everything all of you do. So I don't see any questions, so I will go ahead and start wrapping up. But I did just,
Ravi, did you tell Ravi? Oh, we already told Ravi how awesome.
I already told Robbie
Okay,
how,
yeah.
you know, because I think that that's like I just said, and like Deb mentioned, your voice, although one voice is such an important voice, and the fact that you're doing something outside of the disability community, that is huge. Like being a prosecutor, I can't even imagine what that even looks like. I think is incredible. Going to law school, which I mean, I have one of my best friends went through law school, and that is not an easy task. So, you know, navigating law school and navigating it with a disability is huge. And I think that that shows, just like Deb said, you absolutely can do anything and doesn't have to be disability related. So again, thank you all for being here. We appreciate all of you so much. Just to take a minute of reflection, I mean, I did speak to that a little bit, but you know, today is about raising awareness, and this panel really helped us do that. So innovation and solutions, we talked about a lot of solutions today. It takes a community with unfailing drive, endurance, and patience. And I know we have so much of that in this community. So I want to continue. I know this conversation is ending now, but I want everybody here to keep these conversations going, because that's the only way that we're going to create change. And together we are stronger than Duchenne. And being able to have these conversations with those, especially not in our community, is how we're going to really create that change. So I do see some.
Thank you. And how much you do too. We got to give you some love. I mean, you do so much for our community. And, you know, it's one thing, a lot of us are there because we have to be. It's ourselves or our children that are in the space. And so we get kind of drafted, right? But like you signed up, you know? So like we will be grateful forever to people like you and to Jett Foundation and all of the organizations that we mentioned today, and the ones that we didn't mention. Like there is an army of people out there. So I wanted to give you a little love too. So thank you.
Don't do it for the credit, but thank you. I appreciate it. It is, you know, I started in this space when I was 16, and, you know, it's a space that I truly cherish, and it's a community that I am deeply grateful to be a part of. So thank you again all for being here. Thank you again, panelists, for allowing us to hear your experiences and your stories. So we appreciate all of you. And if you need anything, please reach out to me, alexa@jettfoundation.org, and we will see you all very soon. And thank you for helping us raise awareness today, September 7th, World Duchenne Awareness Day. We hope you all have a great night. Bye, guys.